Okay, there we go. Well, good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year. And let's see if I can bring my talk up here. Let's see here. I want to get the full screen.
Two over.
Oh, Mary Lou, I don't know. Let's see.
Down the bottom underneath your smiley face.
Yeah, right next to the Zoom function is the presentation button. Your pointer is almost there.
Right there?
Yeah, right there.
A little bit lower. Yeah.
There we go. Okay. I got to get some of this stuff out of my way. Got a lot of stuff going on here.
We can see the presentation, Gary.
Okay, I can't. I got to get some. Okay, there we go. Okay, we're going to be talking about some of my adventures over 30 years in testing new products. And I've always wondered, are some of these worthwhile? And I love Patrick's talk because it'll explain some of the things I ran into. I started out as a little bit suspicious of products when I first started, and after 30 years, I've become probably the most suspicious person on the planet here. So, yeah, it's a very interesting adventure. Oh no. Oh, Mary Lou, I'm frozen here.
Often it's your mouse rather than a keyboard that makes the.
Yeah, if you press the up and down key arrows on the keyboard, maybe it'll work.
Or the click on your mouse.
Oh, there we go. Okay, thank you, Patrick. Okay, so this is from an article in Topics and Subtropics by Jim Downer. I think it's back in 2011, and the reference is at the end of this talk. And he says, in trying to solve problems that are difficult in horticulture, root rot and salinity, especially in avocado, people sometimes turn to products that are purported to cure, revitalize, invigorate, stimulate, or enhance the growth of their plants. And there we have a lot in the sales teams of these various companies. We have some very good salesmen and saleswomen that really do a good job. But Jim says he was working in landscape and turf, I think, and he said he called them snake oils. And of course, that term has been around a long time. And here's the problem with snake oils. They don't have any referenced research reports from universities. They always have numerous testimonials, and sometimes they enlist growers to do testimonials and they give them stock in the company. We ran into that here in San Diego. Marketing materials have some biological or chemical jargon. Sometimes they sound good. Sometimes they work on a new principle not known to science. I love that one. And I got some stuff in my way here. And sometimes they have a secret ingredient we don't know about. Okay, I got to be really careful here. Okay, we have a lot of really smart people in this world, so I like listening to these products, about the products, and we have a constant flow of new ideas. So they're worth listening to, I think. And I've tried to listen to their sales pitches, and maybe somebody does have a good idea sometimes. But a lot of times it boiled down to this. There is no research on this because it is too expensive, or the snooty university professor won't listen to me. I've heard that a lot. Or there was some secret research done in Russia on this product. So why are they coming to the Farm Advisor? I had a constant flow of companies coming into my office and giving me the pitch here. I always had the feeling that if they thought the Farm Advisor liked this product, then that is gold for them. Maybe I'm putting myself in too high a position here, but that's what I felt. They were often disappointed to learn that the Farm Advisor is part of the University of California, and we follow scientific principles in order to recommend something. Okay, but But I've got here, be that as may, I still like listening to their sales pitch if it wasn't too annoying, and sometimes it really got too annoying, and in order to see what the grower is dealing with. I want to show you why research on avocados is difficult and expensive. And this is something the companies don't realize. If they really want us to do some research, they're going to have to pony up some money to do it. Say this is actual yield data from our high density trial. This is pruning, both of them pruning method number 2. And you can see the 2016 yield. This is pounds per tree. All of them were Hass on Dusa rootstocks. All had the same soil, of course. All had the same fertilizer. Everything was the same, except the weather. And Patrick just touched on that. We get stress, and we get stress. Not only, but even if the weather was exactly the same, we have this problem of alternate bearing from year to year. So look at in 2016 here, only one tree has 0 fruit. And over here in 2017, we have 14 trees with no fruit. So you have to get yield from multiple trees and in several years to really get some data. And it's difficult and it takes a lot of work. Okay, what can you do as a grower when you're hit with all this stuff? Well, I would if I were you, I'd call the farm advisor or the extension specialist and ask them if they know about this product and if there's of any research on it, and or if they could maybe do a search on that, see what is out there. Okay, ask if there's any research. Okay, if not, you can try it on your own grow. Be careful, but like Patrick said, some of these have to be registered as a pesticide, which means, and if they're not registered, you have to dump the fruit. You cannot have that fruit go to market. But I would certainly try to have somebody from the university involved in this. Okay, I've got here treat 1 block and leave 1 block as a control. Now, most growers really can't do that. They might treat a few trees and leave a few trees untreated. I've had actually, I love seeing growers do some research on their own to just check things out. I wouldn't treat the whole grove. You just don't know really what's going to happen here. So just do a few trees. And you got to repeat your trial for several years, and then get the farm advisor involved if you can. We're interested in this sort of stuff. So, and I would like you to do research like I did in the previous slide, but most growers cannot do this. So on the previous slide, I was doing a randomized replicated trial across the hill. And so if there's any variation in soil or whatever on that hill, you kind of take that in for granted. Be careful. Just treat healthy trees. Make sure you don't have root rot, unless you're trying to treat for root rot. But just be careful. Okay, so I'm going to just talk about some of the products I've had to deal with during my career. And it's going to be on the lighthearted side, but I'm going to say all these situations are true. Every single one happened, believe it or not. Okay, I've got the section, a little bit of magic and a whole lot of mystery. This is the box that will inactivate salt in your irrigation water. It was advertised very heavily, and had a really nice salesman that was very friendly, and with the claim, you can buy this box, hook it up to your irrigation system, and it'll inactivate the salt in your irrigation water. This will allow you to use your saline water from your wells. That sounds good, but does it really work? Okay, I figure, oh man, this is easy. All you got to do is check this out, check the salt content in the water before it goes through the box, and measure the salinity after it goes through the box. We did this and it was the same, but no, the company said the salt is there, it's just inactivated. Well, in my experience, you just don't inactivate salt. They sent me 40 pages of explanation how this is supposed to work. I forwarded it to a soils professor and a physics professor at UC Riverside, and they both said, same thing, this doesn't work. And I think in that 40 pages, they were talking about This box makes electrons jump from the inner orbit to an outer orbit, so you really don't have salt anymore. Okay, the soils professor mentions this at one of our avocado meetings, and he said it doesn't work, and the soils professor got threatened by the company's lawyer. Okay, this is kind of common, and the one grower told me, it works, I see the lights flashing. Well, the lights flashing doesn't mean it's working, okay? Evidence for this, it's lacking. There is no evidence this works, no scientific evidence. I mean, they were joking. Somebody was joking at the back of the room. If it really worked, the company could have said you can irrigate from the ocean. But, you know. Okay, another one. Essence of bones dissolved in water. Okay, the claim, spray this on your avocado trees and it will double your yield, and the trees will use half as much water. This is a very common claim a lot of growers hear. Double your yield and the trees use half the water. I've heard this a lot of times. Okay, what is this stuff? The company says it consists of water that bones have been soaked in. Any research on this? And that this is the exact statement they made to me. No, we expect you to do that, Dr. Bender. You know, drop everything you go and spray my essence of bones. Okay, this goes in the snake oil file. There's a small kernel of truth, but it wasn't thought out very well. Okay, this will be interesting. Polyacrylamide granules that absorb water. And Ben just told me he got a product in just the other day, apparently, that they're doing it in Ventura now. This is done here in San Diego probably 20 years ago. It's used in the nursery. It's still used in the nurseries. It absorbs water and prolongs between watering times. The company thinks this might also work on avocado growth to prolong times between irrigations. The key word here is thinks. No research done on this, but I got intrigued a little bit. Here we set up a trial. I think we had 10 trees treated, 10 trees not treated. The deal is you place granules in 12 holes under each avocado tree, covered with leaf mulch. Okay, they swell up with water and supply water to your tree for supposedly an extra week between irrigations, maybe. Okay, this intrigued me, so I set up a trial with 12 treated trees and 12 control trees, and what happened? The granules swelled up with water and it oozed out of the holes, but it was under the leaf mulch, right? And the pickers couldn't see it. They stepped down off the ladder, step on this pile of granules that are absorbed with water, and it was like stepping on ice, and they would fall down with their bag of fruit. The pickers were complaining, and they're going to get hurt, and so we had to stop the trial. My conclusion: how in the heck did I get myself sucked into this? You know, it was just a lot of work and kind of ridiculous. So be careful this one. Heavy leaf wax plugs up stomates. What a great idea. They claim since water is leaving the stomates in leaves constantly, why not plug up the stomates with wax and reduce the water coming out of the leaves? Okay. Oh, okay, that sounds good. Again, they had no research on avocado trees, but they had a very persuasive salesman. Guy Whitney was a farm advisor in Riverside County, and he and I set up a trial with 10 treated, 10 controls, of course. Now the trees can't cool themselves, so the leaves overheated and all the leaves fell off. The grower was not happy. This is a private grower, I think down here in Rainbow, San Diego County, and he was very happy that we just dropped all the leaves off unhappy that we dropped the leaves off his tree. So, I kind of learned a lesson on this one. Garlic oil and cinnamon oil to kill avocado thrips. Okay, these oils, they're used in organic vegetable production sometimes for insect control. They work on aphids and thrips, I guess. They should work in avocado production. So we got intrigued a little bit here because we were in the middle of a thrips crisis in the late 1990s, and we were doing spray trials with pesticides, but organic growers couldn't use most of them. Okay, a company rep brought me 3 gallons of garlic oil and 3 gallons of cinnamon oil and dropped them in my office. I'll say, okay, let's go out and spray some trees. So we sprayed some avocado trees in Valley Center. I didn't see any thrips control, but the plot with the garlic sprayed trees smell like an Italian restaurant, just like an Italian restaurant. And the cinnamon sprayed trees smelled like pumpkin pie. The grove smelled great, but no thrips control. Probably because, you have to get this stuff under the leaves. It's possibly part of the reason. Seemed like a good idea at the time, but then this happened. Sticky polybutenes mixed with copper. Well, we know copper on citrus trees stops snails. And here's a picture from the IPM manual where they just build up under the copper. They get a little bit of electric shock on their foot when they touch copper, so they won't cross it. So they've come up with a kind of a copper paint, and that they won't cross that either. Actually, growers sometimes still use that copper fertilizer mixed in a white paint a band around the trunk, and they won't cross it. So the company thought, well, this is great. We'll mix, let's control ants and snails at the same time. We're going to mix some polybutenes with copper and paint on there, so the ants will get stuck in the polybutenes and the snails won't cross the copper. Okay, so they painted bands. A UC professor, I won't say his name, from UCR set up this trial. I wasn't involved in it, but he did do it in San Diego County. Instead of trying on one tree first he treated 10 trees in my county. The mixture was toxic to the bark, and the trees died. So the trees got ringed by this stuff. Kind of sound like a good idea, but the company just didn't do enough research. Injectable bacteria into irrigation systems to control Phytophthora. Okay, a beneficial bacteria for control of Phytophthora cinnamomi has been isolated at UCR. Why not brew them up in large quantities, inject them into irrigation systems for control of root rot? Okay, the truth is Pseudomonas putida was isolated by Dr. John Mengi, and he proved in pots in the greenhouse that it could control root rot. So that seems like a logical thing. Let's mix it up in large quantities, inject it into the irrigation system, and we'll control root rot in the grove. But all of a sudden, we had a lot of companies and individual people just mixing products with this bacteria, supposedly bacteria. I inspected one factory, and the owner was mixing bacteria into garbage cans in his garage. That was done here in San Diego County also. I don't know where he supposedly got the Pseudomonas putida, but I assume he got it from Dr. Mengi. But there was no control over sterilization of anything. And here's what happened. Dr. Mengi was checking the bacteria content of some of these products. All of them at the time were contaminated, and he couldn't recover the correct bacteria. So Dr. Mengi also conducted trials in the field. He did quite a few trials. He could not show a reduction in root rot or Phytophthora concentration in the soil in avocado groves. So sound like a good idea, but it just didn't work. Ideas from growers and a certain farm advisor, and I have to admit that would be me. Pollen, this sounded like pretty good. Pollen from Zutano and Susan and Zutano avocados sprayed onto Hass flowers. Okay, the claim, spray the male pollen. They would catch the pollen from bees as they go across a pollen trap going into their hive. The pollen would fall out and catch in this trap. So then they would take the pollen and go into Hass flowers that are in their female stage, and the fruit set would increase. We're not sure if this works. The concept is good, I thought, because Hass flowers in the morning are female and they need male pollen. Okay, I wanted to do some research with this, but the PCA wasn't interested. I'll ask you this question. Why was he not interested? I don't know for sure. This particular person is a very good PCA, honest, and I like him a lot. But he had clients. And what if the farm advisor came up with some data that showed that it didn't increase production? Well, that's a bad thing for him, right? So I'm just assuming that was what it was, but I'm not sure. Ducks eat snails. One of our citrus growers in Palma Valley had a huge problem with snails. I mean, you couldn't take a step in that grove without stepping on snails. So he bought and released 30 ducks in the middle of a 10-acre grove. The very first night, half wandered onto Highway 76 and were hit by cars. The other half were eaten by coyotes. That's a grower with a great idea, but he just didn't think it through. And you got to pen these ducks up at night. If you know anything about ducks or chickens, you got to pen them up. Here's another one. Use carpet under persimmon trees to control weeds. God, this is great. The carpets block the light to stop weed growth. Carpet eventually break down in the soil. Carpet companies don't have to haul the carpets to the dump. It's a win-win for everybody, right? But it turned out to be a haven for gophers, and the gophers killed the trees. They couldn't see the gopher mounds, and a lot was going on under these carpets. Too bad. Red apple planted underneath avocado trees. Here's another good idea from a grower. The idea is to increase the population of bees flying around and underneath the avocado trees. Hopefully this would result in increased pollination and fruit set. Okay, well, red apple is this kind of a ground cover with little red flowers, and bees love them. So I went to his grove, and he and I sat out there in chairs, and we watched what happened. The bees would come to work the red apple and back to the hive, work to the red apple and back to the hive. None of them went up to the avocado flowers. They were focused on those red flowers, and that's it. They just didn't work the avocado flowers. Oh, this is one of my ideas. I almost hate to mention it, but I got to mention it. I think that we have a small macadamia industry here in San Diego, and the problem we have, well, okay, here. Harvesting is done by picking up nuts from the ground, which is very labor intensive. So you got to rake all the leaves and weeds out of the way, and then they have these individual kind of like golf ball picker-uppers. You pick up the nuts, pick them up off the ground. Somebody gave me a bunch of old parachutes, and I tied them under the trees. It took me all day to do this. The nuts would fall off, roll into the center near the trunk, and fall into a bucket. And great idea, right? The next day we had a huge windstorm, and it came up and blew all the parachutes into the Pacific Ocean. So I just I told myself I got to give up on wacko ideas from myself. I'm just not there. Oh, this is a good idea. The mini sprinkler raised high in the tree to kill persea mites. I was down taking soil samples, and I noticed that the leaves around me didn't have any persea mites, and they were in the path of the mini sprinklers. They're all getting wet every time they'd irrigate. But you go up higher in the tree, and it was loaded. This is a picture of a loaded up persea mites on a avocado leaf here. These are you can see the little webbings and you have a whole bunch of mites underneath each one. They don't like wet leaves, so we raised them up. We raised the sprinkler I think we went about 5 or 6 feet into the tree. We did all our irrigation up into the tree, and all the mites just disappeared from those leaves, and they went out to the dry leaves. And we did a lot of microscope work on that, and yeah, it did work, but I was so busy doing other stuff, I just didn't have time to do more work on this and get it published. But it's my own wacko idea that once in a while something works. Let's cheat the water company. I love this one. You put a strong magnet in the irrigation line to reduce water flow to fool the water meter. Okay, so here's a picture of water molecules. They have a negative end and a positive end, and they're all, if you can imagine, they're just whacking around in the water here. They're just moving back and forth all over the place. So the idea is, let's put a strong magnet and line them all up, line all the water molecules up so they condense. the condensed water flows through the water meter, indicating, say, 10 gallons flowing through when there was actually 11 gallons flowing through. Well, no evidence that this worked. A few more ideas from companies that just needed some research. A kelp extract from Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Maine. It is supposedly a certain type of kelp, and it's supposed to increase fruit set in avocados. The company actually did do some work on this. I never actually saw their data, but they came to me and said this sounds like a good product. This particular kelp is reported to be high in cytokinins. It's a plant growth regulator. It makes cells divide faster, supposedly. And so if sprayed on the flowers, when the fruit set occurs, fruits stick and don't drop. So the idea is you go into about halfway through fruit set, spray this kelp extract, and the cells would divide so fast the fruit would stick and not drop. Okay, so we actually did a little bit of research on here, kind of inconclusive. The first year I had 100% increase in yield, in 2 years in a row, I'm sorry, but could not repeat this in years 3 and 4. And this kind of goes back to what Patrick was talking about. There was probably a stress, and it was probably heat related. That's our most common stress. We get a lot of heat sometimes in June, and it causes fruit drop. This one is probably worth pursuing, and I think the company did too. In fact, they hired Lawrence Murray from UC Cooperative Extension to work for them for a little while. He did some trials, and he couldn't come up with any great results. He couldn't come up with the same results I had, and I couldn't come up with the results I had first had, so it's variable. I had just tons of things dropped off in my office from various companies. They wanted me to try them out. And so one year I thought, let's go ahead and we'll set up a randomized replicated trial on a hillside with healthy trees, and we'll spray them all these things here. You can see down here at the bottom, the non-sprayed control, and up here at the top was Grangetto's Grow Getter. Now, what is that? That on their label, it said it's a complete minor element spray with humates. I don't know what kind of humates. I don't know how much. You know, they don't tell me these things, but I just treated them. I treated everything. Each year I sprayed on April 15th, and in that particular grove in Valley Center, it was about halfway through fruit set. So, and we did a phos acid. Then we had another mysterious product, a nutrient technology. They had all kinds of things in here, a zinc and a calbor. Now that's calcium and boron. And they had a water control, just sprayed water and phos acid low rate. And then Supertron's an organic product that I don't know what's in it. And then a non-sprayed control, you can see. So we repeated this trial. I think I did this about 4 years in a row. I got 2 years of good data with Grow Getter, and then the years 3 and 4, again, I didn't have any difference from the control. And this is the issue that Patrick was talking about here. What exactly is the stress? Now, could they be zinc deficient? Could they be boron deficient? Now, Carol Lovett was working on boron and phos acid, and she also showed in some years you could get an increase in yield. And it probably depended on, the fertilizer content in the flowers at that time. Interesting product. Now, I was told later the Grow Getter had a secret product that not on the label, and that it was some of that algae I spoke of on the first one. The interesting thing here, lemon scent sprayed on avocado trees to attract bees. I also had a company bring in this material. It was very lemony, and you spray the lemon scent on the flowers to attract the bees. I had students at the time from Maricosta College, and we went out there. Each one had a hula hoop, and they were stationed next to 10 sprayed trees and 10 control trees, and they were counting the number of bees going in and out through the hoops. The bees flying through the hula hoops were counted for 10 minutes. The bees did have a significant increase flying through the lemon scent hula hoops compared to the control, which so there's a lot more bee activity. But the bees were flying around, but I looked at them very closely. They didn't seem to be working the flowers. They were just flying around, and I'm they're confused, I think. Okay, this stuff smelled exactly like lemon pledge, the wax you treat your woodwork in your house. So sort of thinking that might have been what we sprayed, possibly. And then the coup de grace for me, just the final blow to my sanity here, magic sand from Nipton, California. Now, where is Nipton? Nipton is out in the middle of the desert on the way to Searchlight, Nevada, and that's close to the Colorado River there. It's a little tiny town, and this guy came in with 5 gallons of sand and dropped it on my office, and he said, put it under your trees and it'll double your yield and reduce your water requirement by half. I keep hearing that. Of course it will, I thought. Okay, there's no evidence that works. He wanted me to do some research on it, and I said, no, I just don't have time. Please take your sand and go home. Or I didn't tell him to go home, but please take your sand. But he didn't. He just left it there and walked out. Okay, well, this, of course, went into my snake oil file, but now I've got all this magic sand I had to get it in my garage. My county director told me to get it out of the office, so I took it home and mixed it up in some concrete and poured some concrete with it. So that worked. But I'm getting, at this point, I'm getting really sick and tired of products coming into my office. So what are you going to do? Don't assume anything is true. Be suspicious like me. You gotta have some reliable research to back it up, or do some of your own research, but don't do a whole lot of trees, and don't believe testimonials. Be very careful. Don't treat a lot of trees in case you don't like that polybutene with the copper. You don't want to kill your trees. Call the farm advisor and see, or the extension specialist. Call Mary Lou Arpaia. She knows. Ben Faber. They're both excellent. They'll tell you if there's any research on this and how good it is. Maybe they will. Or call Patrick Brown. And have non-treated controls. Don't treat everything. I've had a lot of growers say take the some product that I was working with and spray the whole grove, but they just don't know for sure if it was working. And if you can randomize and replicate, but I know that's difficult for growers, and I doubt most people will do that. But I want to encourage everybody, keep thinking. There might be some good ideas out there. And Patrick Brown just talked about the stresses, and sometimes you just don't know what those stresses are. That's where we got to get to. If we have a hot spell in June, like if we have 5 days over 105 degrees, we're going to get a lot of fruit drop. Is there something we can treat our flowers and little fruit with that'll reduce that stress? That's where we need to be going in this whole deal. Okay, there's a paper by Jim Downer, and I would encourage everybody to read it. It's a very good article, and I think it should be required reading for a grower, I think. Okay, that's it for me, I think, today. That's it, Mary Lou. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Gary.